Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome along to a glorious Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya for the opening race of the final weekend of GT4 European Series. Myself, Ben Kostenjuris, and David Anderson alongside me for what it promises to be an exciting afternoon of action and, of course, a precursor for the last race of the year tomorrow morning. Track temperature at 36 degrees, not too much humidity. It's a pleasant day. We are expecting much higher temperatures as we move across the rest of the weekend. We had qualifying this morning. It doesn't seem to replicate too much the grid that we are about to see, because lots of penalties, lots of changes. In some cases, it seems to be reversals of what we saw, because we did have an interrupted session in Q1 with a red flag. And at the time, we questioned whether Alex Fontana had got his time or not. Race stewards at the time and timekeeping took it away during the session. It seems to have come back again.
It does. And so Alex Fontana has been given back his time, which is good enough for pole position. The car that ended the session the fastest has ended up with a grid drop, carried over from Hockenheim anyway. So Vincent Andronico didn't out-qualify Alex Fontana, but it looked like he had, because Fontana's time had been taken away. Yawn with your mouth closed, everybody. But the grid drop from Hockenheim for another indiscretion has ended up going against Andronico anyhow. So we've got a jumbled grid again. We've got a race in isolation to get excited about, but then we've also got championships. Now, and we've got a Toyota that's stranded as well. Now, that car is the one that should be 12th on the grid. That's the Romain Monti Antoine Potti Supra. And Romain Monti, as you can see, ground to a halt. We'll keep an eye to that, see what comes of it. Championship situations. We've got Silver, Pro-Am and Am. They're all up for grabs this weekend. It is unlikely that Silver and Am will be won in this race. The one that might be is Pro-Am. Now, Ben and I have been very busy doing points calculations. And as far as we reckon, in Pro-Am, Jean-Luc Bobelic and Jim Pla lead by 34 points. They can win the championship if they outscore Greg Gilbert and Fabien Michel, or they drop less than 9 points. Should be drop fewer, really, shouldn't it? Drop fewer than 9 points against Gilbert and Michel, the Audi having to be 5th or higher to stay in the mix. Now, let's, before we get really bogged down in championships, go to the grid. Alexander Hartvig drives one of the quick Porsches, number 44, and he's with Gemma Scott.
Alex, obviously we're coming into the first race of the weekend. You'll be starting from 3rd for this one.
Yeah, I mean, Moritz did a wonderful qualifying with actually P4, but our teammate got the penalty so he will start from P9. So now we're on P3, which is mega, and I just think we will have the best race ever, because it's the last race of the season, obviously last weekend of the season. So I'm really pleased to be here.
Absolutely, and it's getting hotter and hotter, it feels like.
Yeah, I mean, lovely weather. What's not to like?
I love it. All the enthusiasm. Have a great race.
Thank you so much.
Alex Hartvig then to share number 44 with Moritz Weisskirchen. There is the Allied Racing Porsche Cayman, the 718 Cayman GT4 RS CS for Club Sport, and it's going to be Moritz Weisskirchen that does the opening stint. I won't bore you yet with Silver, because I suspect we might go back to the grid in a minute. I'll worry about the Silver permutations in due course. But in court circular news, Ben, because there are so many other penalties to catch up on.
Just on the 22 penalty.
Yeah.
Yes, he got a penalty from the last round. Also a penalty from this round as well. 5-place grid penalty for car 22 for this race, because Andreas Mahl has accrued too many behavioural warning points, the BWPs,
right,
which of course accrue across the whole season and become a thing at the end of the season when you've got too many. So you get one for speeding in the pit lane and things like naughty little things. Yeah. You can get more if you do badder, worse things.
No, I think badder was good. I like it.
And basically Andreas Mahl's got too many. So that's
right,
another 5-place grid penalty for them.
So that's another reason why that car drops away. So 5 places for Hockenheim, 3 for that. Let's go back down to the grid. Let's see who Gemma's caught up with next.
Fabian, obviously we're coming into the last weekend of the season. It's been absolutely awesome so far. The racing, as ever, has stayed so close. What's the goal here? The goal is not to get run over, first of all.
Yes.
You okay?
It's very dangerous, the car. Yes, no, we're happy to be here for the last race. Good position on the grid, and very happy to for me, perhaps the last race with GT4. I don't know, so It's especially for me and for my teammate Gregory. Okay.
Absolutely. Keep it special and memorable.
Yes, of course. We hope to do a good race, and perhaps it's possible to win the championships, and we hope this.
Bon courage,
Thank you
merci.
so much.
And keep out of hospital as well, because very nearly getting mowed down there, Fabio and Michel. The team didn't seem to move in very quickly.
It's possible but unlikely for the championship for them.
It is. They're the outsiders,
Yes,
but it is
exactly,
possible.
yeah.
Can I just offer you, Vincent Andronico and Andreas Mayel are amongst drivers, and it's Andronico in this case, a number of drivers failing to respect the fast lane has been noted. A list of numbers have appeared, one of which is number 22 Porsche. Oh, so that could be another behavioural warning point going Vincent Andronico's way. We will see. Benjamin Lariche, anyway, let's get back to the racing and the grid. He will go from 13th here. Alex Fontana on pole position. There's also number 89, Wilfried Casalbon, and his Aston Martin, an unsafe release being looked at. So the stewards are busy, and we're not even on the formation lap, never mind the race at the start yet. So it's all happening. Let us go to the grid again. 7:18 then is Alex Fontana to start. Ivan Jacoma will take over, and Ivan Jacoma, the Swiss driver, is ready to talk to Gemma.
Ivan, we've just been talking to Fabian, and you two will be going head-to-head in the last part of this race. He's fighting for the championship. You guys are obviously here on pole, hoping for the top step of the podium as well.
Yes, we are very happy to be here, and it's a surprise because we have yet second place, but we start from the pole. Also, I hope for a good race and not a lot of accident.
Fingers crossed for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So Ivan Jacoma in the car that now starts on pole position. I suspect they may have had to go and have a word with the officials after the session to say, no, look, we did do that time before the red came out.
And their onboard camera that they will be running in the car will have been absolutely worth the weight in gold, because remember that the start line here in Barcelona is quite far down the straight. The finishing line is quite near the end of the lap. So I'm pretty sure he may have not crossed the start line, but did cross the finishing line to complete his lap before the red flag.
And that's the line. It is the control line. It's the timing line. That's the line.
Yeah.
The start line is only used once. The timing line is used every lap, indeed. And you know, the time came up. Had the red flag kicked in, that time wouldn't have been shown, which is what we said at the time. So anyway, it's all been resolved. And Alex Fontana versus Greg Gilbert. So actually what you've got is a front row of Pro-Am cars in the end. The best Pro entry is the one that we heard about from Alexander Hartwig starting third, and then fourth on the grid, Etienne Shelley. We'd also seen, had we not the 12th placed qualifying car, Romain Monti, the Toyota Supra, being pushed away, having expired when it left the pits. It's been pushed back into the pit lane. So that we might see start at the very back. Gus Bowers had a good start to the season, but it's unravelled a bit since then. What are his chances going into this race, Gemma?
Gus, I was just looking around for your car. You're not anywhere near it right now, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, qualifying didn't quite go to plan. We're a bit further back, but of course we can still fight from there. I think the red flag, along with a few track limits, just didn't do us a good favour, so we'll still fight.
What happened exactly?
Yeah, so the red flag, we took a gamble by going out late, and just the red flag meant that we kind of lost the peak of the tyre by the time Konstantin was set a good lap. He did a great job, all things considered, but unfortunately we just couldn't maximise on, I think, the pace we had. You can see the other car is very high up, so kind of wishing it was us up there as well.
What can you do to fight through? It's a tough grid, right?
Yeah, I think consistency is going to be key. Lap one will probably be quite chaotic, so get through lap one, heads down, clean pit stop, and hopefully, yeah, we can do the job for RSL and Aston Martin.
Kind of glad you're not starting it at that point.
Oh, a little bit. It's quite far down, so no. Yeah, we'll be fine, I hope.
Thanks a lot. Have a good one.
Thanks so much. Cheers.
Well, we know that Gus Bowers is quick. If he gets his elbows out, then progress can be made in the second stint. There is Vincent Andronico, whose roller coaster day continues to roll, doesn't it, really? He's been in the gravel, he's caused a red flag, he's had pole position, he's had it taken off him, he's had a grid drop, he's had another grid drop, he's now under investigation. Do I go on?
But he starts ninth.
Oh, he does, that's right, yes.
And the car had been into the wall, actually. We didn't know if it had from the angle of the replay and where the car had ended up in the gravel, but it had bounced off the rear quarter and then back into the gravel. But they didn't think had been bent at all.
Right.
All the wheels are facing the right direction, and ultimately, I mean, he set a really fast lap time in that car.
And we know he's quick. I mean, there's been no doubt about that, whether it's been in this championship or in the German series, in which he's also raced. And I think he's had a GT3 outing as well. So Vincent Andronico, new to car racing this year, is quick and harnessed. I think that pace will certainly pay out in the next couple of 3 seasons. Hugo Sassa sharing with Mike David Ortman, another driver to watch. I mean, as ever, trying to pick a winner out of all of this, well nigh impossible. Last year, the race was won by a Toyota Supra. Well, the best of those on the grid isn't on the grid anymore.
Here's a little story for number 4. Théo Nouet waited really, really late to go out and do a lap time. Got caught speeding in the pit lane during qualifying 1, and therefore had his fastest lap deleted, which dropped him down a couple of positions. It gave him a behavioural warning point as well. So he was one of the other changes from what we saw from qualifying to what we have as a grid.
Yes, the word provisional is much used in GT4, isn't it? Tom Canning is going to start the racing spirit of Le Mans Aston Martin, number 19, that he shares with Akhil Rabindra, the Indian driver, former single-seater racer in the UK. Number 8 is the Etienne Chelly Corentin Souron Toyota Supra.
And remember that Corentin didn't do a very good lap time in Q2, so today is their real opportunity to do what we know that car can do. The Toyota has been strong at points during the season, and when it's at the right part of the grid at the start, it tends to have a really good run of things. Yeah. Tomorrow, starting in 20th, will be difficult, so up there on the sharp end and row 2 should be a good place to be.
Greg Gilbert starting from the outside of the front row. Now, this car needs to be in the Pro-Am battle ahead of Jean-Luc Beaubelic and Jim Pla, who didn't qualify very well because of a suspected suspension issue on the right rear corner. And that's why Jim Pla, who was behind the wheel, is only 18th on the grid. So row 1 plays row 9. It's advantage Audi at the moment, isn't it?
And Jim Pla doesn't look incredibly well as well. I didn't have a chance to talk to him, but he's got a lot of strapping all over his shoulders and is limping around the paddock. So
like he's had an injury somewhere.
Whether he's fallen off his skateboard or something more serious, I'm not sure. But it certainly doesn't look like the kind of person who's going to jump into the car and be merry. But, you know, when adrenaline pumps through these racing drivers, especially a man like Jim, it doesn't affect them too much. But
no, this is true.
I mean, ultimately, qualifying is, you know, down in 18th, 19th position is not his usual stuff.
And equally, with respect, Jean-Luc Beaubelic is not as quick as Fabien Michel. So we know that Greg Gilbert is quick. He and Jim Pla can go toe-to-toe, but the difference is to be made when you factor in the pace of the AMs, and the quicker of those two is certainly going to be Fabien Michel. He's faster than is Jean-Luc Beaubelic. So there is the grid, stretching all the way back up the pit straight. The start line, midway down. The reason that the timing line is where it is that it has to be in front of the timekeeper's window. But you can't have the grid start there because it would stretch all the way back around the last corner. So you move it down the pit straight a little bit. And you also then, under track licenses, have to find, as the 1 minute board is shown and the engines fire, the start line has to be at a point where it is safe, so that you've got all the cars out of the last corner, but it's not too far away from the first corner, so they're not arriving there at too high a speed, and equally it's not too close to the first corner, so they're not arriving there sort of still in second gear almost, and you start and almost turn straight in. So there's under the circuit regulations, there is a plan for where the start line can be, but the reason that the timing line is always where it is because it has to be in front of the timekeeper's window, but the start line move down the pit straight so you can get the whole grid onto the pit straight.
I've learned something just there.
There you go. Fascinating fact 37.
Yes.
It's amazing what this anorak pocket has in it. Now, the 15-second board is shown, and the grid should be clear. There's that gap where the Toyota is not. So if the Supra from the CMR team, which was the winning car here last year, is going to start, it will start from the pits at the back. And there's another gap, I think, looking out of the window, which is alongside number 32, and it's the number 89, Wilfried Casarbon, Julien Lambert car. Now, that was being looked at for an unsafe release, but it's not on the grid as far as I can see.
That's impressive. So does that mean it's gone missing around the circuit somewhere?
And also missing is Tom Verdier and Loris Cabiro's car. That's not on the grid either. as they now set off. So
no, and remember that one that didn't qualify.
No,
and was having an engine change. So here is the grid as it should be.
Indeed. So it should line up with Alex Fontana on pole position and Greg Gilbert alongside, ahead of Moritz Viskerken and Etienne Shelley, with on the third row Tom Canning and Theo Nue. Hugo Sasser will be on the fourth row, lining up alongside Rui Miojas, who's in the mix to win the silver contest this weekend, and he will start ahead of Vincent Andronico, and Simon Gachet will start 10th ahead of Hendrik Still, and it would have been Romain Monti next, but that car missing from the grid. Benjamin Lariche will line up alongside Christophe Amon. Next row of the grid is Mikhail Loboda and Paul Caupe, ahead of local driver Luc Ibaniev, here to win silver, but starting from the 9th row with Jim Pla for company. Then there is Constantin Lachenard and Dante Raponge lining up ahead of Nico Verdonk and Jean-Baptiste Mella with his Alpine. Antoine Leclerc is next with Jamie Day out of British GT4 alongside him. The 13th row, Anthony Beltoise and the experienced Ralph Kelleners outpacing Stanislav Safronov. And then Adam Carroll in the quicker of the two Greystone GT McLarens. He is going to start from the outside of the 14th row. The 15th row, Marc Lopez for Team Full Motorsport, with a very quick co-driver in Sacha Bottoman, and then Berke Besler's BMW lines up alongside on the 16th row, Florian Grisot and Mike Parisi for AGS Events alongside. Then there is Alain Valente, and lining up alongside him, Philippe Vava. Fabien Barthez, the renowned goalkeeper, is on the 18th row of the grid with Marnit Batrin alongside him. Solo driver Greg Faisal lines up alongside Jagish Gaidik next. Then there's Stéphane Lemeray, and a gap where Wilfried Casarbon should have been. Max Trasoldi is on the 21st row with Vincent Guizy for company. Then there is Pierre-Laurent Figuier and Henrik Pedersen on row 22. The 23rd row, gap where there's no Tom Verdier, but Alban Lagrange is there. And at the very back, Christophe Bourret and Pascal Gibon's car with Christophe Bourret to start.
So the reason how that has happened, the 80 car of Tom Verdier didn't qualify because they've been having an engine change. It doesn't look like they're going to be here for the rest of the weekend. But the 28 and the 53 that are behind them got a 5-place grid drop. So they've been dropped behind a car that didn't qualify.
That's fine, because it would have been in that position.
Yes, exactly.
So you have to account for it being there. Right.
All the admin is done.
Yeah.
Let's just do racing.
The racing is the easy bit, trying to explain all the penalties. It's no wonder there's a separate team of officials for GT4, like there is for every championship, because so much to look at. And of course, the more data you have, the more that can change a decision. It's not like the old days where you didn't have as many onboard cameras or the GPS or the tracking, whatever it might be. But it does, of course, help the teams to make sure that the decision made is not an unfair one. But as Ben rightly says, let's go racing. This is the easy bit relative to everything else, and a fascinating 1-hour race is in prospect. There is the mandatory pit stop, of course, to look at as well in all of this, as the cars now come down into turn 15, 16 section of the circuit, and in a moment the race director Steve Burns will give the command to get the race underway. The lights will go green. It's a bit of an untidy start from 1 or 2, but Alex Fontana versus Greg Gilbert, and a really good getaway from the second row by Moritz Viskerken, who tries to squeeze between the front row cars, can't do it on the run now, down towards turn 1. It's going to be the Porsche and the Audi side by side, but look at the Toyota storming up on the outside line there. Etienne Shelley has made a really good start. He's up into second. He tries to go for the race lead, can't do it, but second place, almost gets alongside Fontana. As off the road goes Greg Gilbert. He gets back onto the road, he takes others with him, and Fontana comes out ahead.
Going to be on the outside there. There's lots and lots of marbles, and it's very, very slippery. Constantin Lachenard off on the marbles on the outside, and will lose all of that inside ground. Plenty of others doing the same thing, choosing to do the same thing, was Greg Gilbert.
You sort of drive out of trouble, don't you, rather than get into trouble. So if in doubt, use the runoff, and the field swarms through. But the best start of all, very definitely, the Toyota. Really good getaway by Etienne Shelley, then up into second place. Moritz Viskerken having dropped back a little bit, coming out of turn 5 now. Just look at this queue of cars. It goes on and on and on and on and on as they plunge downhill. They get to the turn 7, 8 sequence next. That little flick left, right, climb the hill up towards turn 9, blind brow, turn, and then you crest the rise, and just as you get over the brow, then you know what's ahead of you, which is the short run down to turn 10, speed building all the while. This is turn 10. This is heavy braking, and if you're really bold, you can make a move up on the inside line, as you see Theo Nue try to do, and he's ahead of Rui Miojas now. Number 14 Audi versus number 15 Mercedes. for Silver Cup honours. It won't be decided in this race, but we'll monitor their progress as this one-hour battle unfolds.
It's been a poor start for Michel Leboda, who's our leader in the AM Cup. Took that lead last time out in Hockenheim and was inside the top 15 at the start of the race. But it does look as though through the middle sector of the lap he's lost some ground. Perhaps if you're just on the outside of one corner, the field just filters through like one long train and you can't get back in.
That's right, so here they come off that last corner. Up towards the timing line. Alex Fontana led at the end of that one by 0.8 of a second. There he is. Etienne Shelley in second place. In third place, Moritz Weisskirchen. In fourth place, Vincent Andronico has now lost out over the line, in fact, because Greg Gilbert is ahead of him by turn 1. So that's a reversal. Henrik Still is 6th. 7th is Theo Nue. 8th, Rui Miojas. 9th, Jim Pla. That's good progress in the lap, isn't it? From 18th. And Simon Gachet rounding out the top 10. Where is Luc Ibanez? 16th.
Tom Canning down to 13th position from a top 5 start, so he lost out as well. So both Aston Martins from Racing Spirit Le Mans. There's a bit of a little touch there to allow Greg Gilbert around the outside. Theo Nue, it's not Theo Nue's gone through, and there is a bit of smoke coming off the back of the car as well.
There is indeed.
Is that Andronico going through?
Yes, I think so. 22. Greg Gilbert with a little bit of smoke. Now, I was thinking maybe that's tyre rubbing against bodywork, but the pace of the car seems compromised straight away, as though maybe the car's got a bit of mechanical damage as well out of all of that. Through on the inside goes Henrik Still. So all of these are Pro-Am cars coming past Gilbert. So as these cars go through, these are points he's given away, but he's on the fight back, isn't he now, on the climb up the hill towards turn 9. So Gilbert thinking, OK, how does the car feel? Feels all right, let's plough on. A rather optimistic flash of the lights by Etienne Shelley there. That's not going to unsettle Alex Fontana, is it?
Look at how many Caymans are up at the sharp end of the field. Fontana, Weisskirchen in 3rd position, then Andronico behind him. Henrik Still's up there as well. And I think there's no other Porsches in the field apart from Leboda.
So here they come. They're down now through the right-hander of turn 13. And Greg Gilbert looks like he's upping his pace once again, doesn't it now? So perhaps able to assess if there is any damage, get around the problem, pressing on. He needs to stay ahead of Bobelik and Pla's Mercedes to keep his championship hopes alive going into the second race of the weekend. We also need to be looking at the number 14 Rui Miojas Audi relative to 15 of Luc Ibanez, and we've got a very slow Audi just going over the timing line. It's Benjamin Lariche who is dropping like a stone. Fontana leads 0.11 of a second to the good now.
A little worried that if that car is expiring, he makes it to a place where it's safe and we don't go safety car. You can see him at the top of the shot there on the left-hand side going very, very slowly.
So Alex Fontana's advantage, just over a second. He's done the fastest lap of the race. But yeah, Andronico up to 4th, Henrik Still up to 5th, and Jim Pla still in 9th. Several cars failed to respect the bollard at turn 1. They'll be investigated after the race as well. So, as ever, what we have on the track might not be the end of the story.
And so the bollard means when you go off the circuit, you have to go round the bollard to access the circuit again. And it is actually tucked far to the left-hand side of turn 2, miles off the circuit, to make sure that you are penalised when you go off track and not gain an advantage. That whole area is tarmacked, and so you could straight line it and gain a huge advantage. Some cars did, for sure. We saw it. We saw a little queue of cars. Others further back may not have done.
So we work lap 3. Rui Miojas there, currently 2nd in silver, and trying to get himself up through the order. His class opposition for the moment is 44 Porsche of Moritz Weisskirchen. First of all, though, he's got to clear Theo Nue, hasn't he? Adam Carroll, by the way, in the Greystone GT McLaren, has done the absolute best first sector. Now, Adam is down in 20th place. He's been a GT3 race winner this year, of course, having fended off Jules Gounon at Alton Park. Because the Balve team didn't do a whole season, it rather got overlooked that. But Adam, at the start of the year, reminded people just how good he is. And it's a shame that in GT4 terms, the McLaren hasn't always had the absolute pace, but that car going nicely. The team manager of number 67 has to report to race control. That is the Marc Lopez Sasha Botterman Audi. Marc Lopez at the wheel of it. Through goes Jim Pla. He's currently 7th in class.
Benjamin Lariche has got going again, so very slow over the start-finishing line, but picked up speed once more, so he's not at the tail end of the field. Theo Nue being passed here around the outside by Rui Miojas. That was a nice, clean move.
Indeed so. Rui Miojas getting better as the stint wears on, isn't he? He's a bit more confident now the tyres have warmed up, as out wide there is for Dante Rapponge, Kenny Herriman's Camaro, battling with number 69 of Christophe Amont. but it's Fontana to the good now. But Andronico has done the fastest lap of the race. So number 22 Porsche is the quick one at the moment, or the quicker one, as it tries to get up the order. Simon Gachet, number 81, sitting on the back of Jim Pla. And Pla, in turn, looking for a way past. Nue commits to the inside line, elbows out. Is he going to be through? Jim Pla squeezes up the inside. You could almost feel the car breathe in there to try and get the space, but Jim Pla hasn't quite been able to do it. Now he has another go on the inside into 7. Does that work? Let's see. It does. He comes out the corner ahead, so Jim Pla goes through, gains another place.
And he also forces Teo Nue out wide, so Nue could well lose more positions here. A little bit bunch of cars behind him. But that was very aggressive from Pla. I wasn't sure there was enough space through 5. He only just had the front axle overlapping the rear axle, but by the time he got down to 7, it was much, much more clear at his corner.
Absolutely so. So good battle between those two, as the next car to watch is going to be Vincent Andronico. He is lapping quicker than the two ahead of him in the sector, so he's catching the race leader. Number 24 of Hugo Sassa now is on the attack as well to try to get up past Teo Nue. Teo, of course, a former Aston Martin driver, trying to fend off an Aston Martin now. And here is the battle for second place, because Andronico is all over Etienne Shelley now, like the proverbial cheap suit. This is playing into the hands of Alex Fontana, who's getting away. But we could be on for a Porsche 1-2 very shortly. At the moment, it's Porsche 1-3-4. The Toyota, the interloper, but it won't be long, I think, before Andronico commits to a move.
I'm afraid we might also have a safety car. Out the window, I can see the 36 code racing car in the gravel, and there's a change of position. Shelley losing second spot.
And there is Antoine Leclerc, who dropped to the back of the pack anyway. He's in the gravel, as Ben said. That's over at turn 10. And yes, surely we're going to end up with a safety car to get that out of the way. 81 there, that is Simon Gachet ahead of Tom Canning. Those two through together. Full course yellow is in fact going to be called for.
Full course yellow in 10 seconds.
That's the voice of the race director, Steve Burns, that you can hear.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Full course yellow now.
Oh, so, look, almost side by side between Still and Weisskirchen. Difficult to know who was ahead at that point.
Well, I think Weisskirchen gets the nod, doesn't he, because he was ahead previously, but Hendrick Still committed to the move and then got the call, because, of course, if the team is relaying it, they'll be slightly behind the race director. But he did the right thing. He backed out of it, and under a full course yellow, this car being retrieved now, it depends a bit how long it takes to hoik that out of the gravel, because if they can release the cars quickly, we won't need a safety car. It's tyre temperatures dropping that you need the safety car for, to bring the tyre temperature back up, because you bring the speed back up. But that car is almost on its way out of the gravel now. So if they can get that to a place of safety, they can release the cars once they've got out of turn 10, because it'll be another lap before they get there, and that car will be out of the way. So
it might not even lose a lap.
Absolutely.
It's back on the hard standing now. This is the corner, and the exit of this corner is where the Anton Leclerc Alpine is. And he just needs to get it fired up and released from the tow truck. It's not quite actually off the gravel, is it?
Just about. Let's have a replay of the start while the recovery operation is underway, and we'll catch up on the recovery operation shortly. So this was the start. Look at Maurice Weisskirchen trying to get himself up between the two front row cars. Couldn't do it. And so as he had to just slightly back out of that, round the outside of all of them came Etienne Shelley, and he also nearly got the race lead on the outside line.
Yeah, notice how the cars jinked to the inside. The inside line must go through the grid hatchings. The outside line must go through the grid hatchings. That's how they must start the race, and they must be like that until the green flag flies. Then they can move. So that's why we saw the late move. There's the contact with Gilbert and Andronico coming through. I wonder if that's going to be investigated. We haven't seen anything so far.
Andronico again, yes, another one to add to the list. Then we had the Mercedes battle. That was Jim Pla getting ahead of Teo Nue, and round the outside then came Simon Gachet as well. Right, there is the safety car, so that answers that. So the full course yellow serves, of course, to instantly slow the pack down.
Safety car procedure, safety car procedure, safety car lights on.
Safety car now will speed them up again. So might only be a lap. See what Steve Burns decides to do. We can, of course, when we get to our esports commentary, Ben, later on in the day, give him our opinions as unofficial race directors, just like we did in Hockenheim, where we argued with him about the need to keep a safety car out as the rain came. But the race director is always right, we discovered.
He'll be fearful of that encounter later on. Such close proximity. It's quite nice just to tap them on the shoulder and go, what's that for?
Safety car in this lap.
And there you go, not even a lap for the safety car, but it does mean any advantage gained in the first 10 minutes of the race is lost, which is a frustration for those that are pushing on.
Indeed, it is absolutely so. So the safety car in this time.
A benefit for the likes of Jim Platt, who has obviously been incredibly strong in the first 10 minutes of the race, from his qualifying position up to 8th spot now. And the gaps were much larger to the lead than they are now. According to the last lap, it was 8.5 seconds, but of course that was stretched out due to the slow speed in which they were traveling. And now that he will have a line of Porsches basically to overtake, he wants to hand over that Mercedes to Jean-Luc Beaubelic in the very best position he can. His championship rivals are only 2 places ahead at the moment.
So a Porsche Cayman 1-2, a sight to behold at the moment, with Etienne Shelley's surviving Supra in 3rd place, then 2 more Porsches. So as you say, there's a lot of these Caymans up there. And safety car in this time, so it is going to be now to Alex Fontana to control the pace in the car that he shares with Ivan Jacoma. And remember that it's Pro-Am 1, 2 and 3 at the moment. The leading silver is Moritz Viskirk, and the second silver, Rui Miojas. But where out of all of this is number 15 of Luc Libania? 15th overall.
Yeah.
What does that do to the class position? 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th? So he's giving away points that need to be somehow pulled back.
And not making progress either.
No, you're right. At his local circuit. Green flag ready, green flag wave. So we go racing this time once more. And we're only about another 10 minutes or so before the window opens for the pit stop. So Fontana's got to try and build up this lead all over again over Vincent Andronico. Same car, different teams. And Fontana is on the defensive as they head into turn 1. And have a look at Rui Miojas there on the outside of Greg Gilbert. Both cars run by Santaloc. That's Pro-Am versus Silver.
Battle for the lead. Looks like Andronico's been aggressive at the start. He's got himself up to speed nicely. Off and wide in the background, Eric Shelley. But the lead battle could well be changing here. We know that Andronico is incredibly fast when he's on the right side of the edge. But he does like to live life on the edge. Oh, and Shelley's under real pressure here. So, oh no!
Hendrik Still right into the side of Viskirk and turns him around. For a driver as experienced as Hendrik Still, that was a bit clumsy, and it's just taken the silver class leader effectively out of contention. And now Viskirk has driven into the gravel as he tries to turn, and he's going to get stuck if he's not careful. Come on, boot it, boot it, boot it.
Straighten the wheels as well.
Come on, go on, keep digging, keep digging. He's done it, he's got back out. Sighs of relief all round from race control because the race can carry on, but Maurice Viskirk is going to be absolutely seething about that. And it was a bit of an odd move from Hendrik Still.
I think they were being slowed up by Shelley as Meerhouse down the inside at the front of shot of Gilbert. That should have been done. I feel as though Shelley was just a little bit slow through the front, the corner before. He was offline as well. He didn't necessarily have the confidence or the grip, so he slowed earlier and backed the 2 Porsches into each other.
There's also an Alpine that's falling apart. We've seen that with bodywork flying, and Hendrik Still has done himself a power of no good. Look, something has broken, so the biter bit there. 38 Hendrik Still peels off the road so as not to impede people through the chicane, and that car is as good as done, isn't it? Max Kronberg might well be denied a chance to drive in the second stint as the leaders go through them. Fontana heads Andronico, and the margin is just under 0.3 of a second. Etienne Shelley's Supra 3rd, and now up into 4th place, Rui Miojas.
And we've just had a quick look at Luc Ibanez at the back of the first queue of cars in 14th position now. His team, NM Racing, literally 5 minutes away from this circuit. That is where their base is. When we say local, we mean really, really local. The kind of, you know, Force India / Jordan proximity to Silverstone. The same for NM Racing, Nils Montserrat's team here in Barcelona. And surprising, they just haven't got it together. The Mercedes, there are better Mercedes out there, and NM Racing, despite that local knowledge, don't seem to have given a car to the championship leaders that works well.
No, you're right. They've been on the back foot all day from qualifying into this race, as the Mercedes battle that we're looking at here is 87 Jim Pla now ahead of Simon Gachet, but that means that Hugo Sassa has got back up ahead of Jim Pla. So Jim yo-yoing up and down the order a little bit at the moment as Fontana versus Andronico for the race lead. 0.277 of a second last time around. The leading AM, by the way, currently Christophe Amon, second AM Mikhail Loboda, third AM Stanislav Savronov. And we are currently on lap 8, the race back underway, of course, after that brief interruption. The leading Porsches are absolutely nose to tail as you look at this long line of cars coming through, including the two Mercedes there, Jim Pla and Simon Gachet. They're both in that Pro-Am contest, of course.
Fontana handing over to Andronico handing over to Mael, and Fontana to Giacomo for the second half of this race. Yellow flags flying in the background of shot there. Quite sure why.
You can see Marshall's running at turn 13, but the leading Porsches then come up towards the timing line. Through they go, and the margin between them is this time around 3/10. That's the reason that there's a yellow flag. Hendrick still has stopped, and there's liquid pouring out on the front, so the contact has done the radiator on the Cayman, and Andronico lines up to have a go on the inside. Left it a bit late, couldn't do it.
Wasn't a huge amount of space either, was there?
No, and he's up the curb as he tries to find a way through then. So the race leaders absolutely nose to tail. This is for the lead of the race. It's for the lead also of Pro-Am. These are effectively the pros in the Pro-Am entries. They're together. And Alex Fontana, who has been, of course, a mainstay of GT3 and esports racing over the last few seasons now, keeping at bay, a driver in his first year of GT racing.
Which is mightily impressive from Andronico to be in this position, to have the ability to be fighting with the likes of Fontana. Fontana just needs to be careful that he doesn't get assaulted here in any kind of a way.
So as they come out of the turn 8 corner, climb the hill. This is how things stand at the moment in Pro-Am. Jean-Luc Boubelic and Jim Pla therefore heading Greg Gilbert and Fabien Michel. So they can be champions, Pla and Boubelic, if they outscore Gilbert and Michel. Well, they are not doing so at the moment.
No, that's not enough to win the championship today, is it?
No, which is good for us. We'd like it to go to the wire.
And Fontana Giacomo would still be in the hunt there? Trying to do my mental arithmetic.
I don't think so for the win.
They are today.
Yes, but yeah, they can still fight for second going into the last race, can't they? So they come then now down through turn 13.
Yeah, slightly frustrating that that's not an overtaking opportunity and not a place to go off track, as we saw from Théo Nouet. You shouldn't be on the limits enough to need to take to the runoff area in a yellow flag zone.
So over the timing line, through goes Alex Fontana, and 0.292 of a second between the pair of them that time around. And again, Andronico dives for the inside, gets it done, but can he get the car slowed down? He can. Fantastic move. Vincent Andronico absolutely dives up the inside of Alex Fontana.
In 10 seconds.
And he's done it just before we get another full course yellow. So that was perfect timing.
That was a wonderful move.
3, 2, 1. Full course yellow now.
So, full course yellow, call for. That's presumably to get rid of Hendrik Still's Porsche. And again, one would hope that would not take long to do, because it's nearly at pit in. It's sort of parked there rather than getting people's way, and that's where it's ground to a halt with the dials going up.
The only question mark I have is whether there's a steering breakage, because there was a bit of contact on the right front at turn 5. And he was going quite slowly, so is it simply a radiator, or does he have steering damage as well? It seems to be rolling pretty well, so maybe that can be removed and we don't need to go safety car. The field is only in the first part of the lap, so this could be a quick grab and go. I'd love to see that move from Andronico again, because Fontana had defended down the main straight. He was moving across to the middle of the circuit, and then moved back to take the racing line. And at that point, Andronico decided to go down the inside. We go green flag at short call, and completely caught out Shelley there, who loses 2 positions to 2 Audis who are on their toes and ready to go. I'm not sure everyone will have responded in the same way as the Audis did, because that took everyone by surprise.
And drama in the background, so that's, again, underlining how you can quickly use a full course yellow. They didn't lose too much tyre temperature, get the race back underway, and there Adam Carroll finds himself in a real battle, doesn't he, going up through turn 10. So you've got the McLaren alongside the Chevrolet. That is Dante Rapon trying to go around the outside, or Adam Carroll trying to get up the inside, depending on which way you look at it. And it's the Chevrolet that comes out ahead, but only just.
Yeah, I think Christophe Hamon also got caught out a little bit, lost a couple of positions, but really the biggest loser was the one we were watching. Chelly losing 2 spots to Meerhouse and Gilbert, who just swept through.
Off the road there
Lachnauer.
goes Konstantin Lachnauer. And a replay here.
Look at this. Caught him napping.
Yeah, green flag shown.
Almost like he was in the wrong gear.
Yes.
Still in cruise mode in 5th gear. And took a few seconds to get back down to...
Or couldn't disengage the limiter, as it were, yeah. So that's really what's done for Etienne Chelly, which is a shame after his really good start, getting himself up into 2nd place.
Now, can Andronico drive away from Alex Fontana? Is he asking too much of his tyres? There is our championship leader in the Silver Cup now in 12th position. So he is slowly making progress. Luc Ibanez, 5th in class. But is he going backwards or going forwards? Dante Reponge, the next man behind him. As we've just seen those two, him and Adam Carroll, squabbling.
So there is Ibanez, 12th overall. And in terms of the silver situation, they would provisionally be 3 points ahead going into tomorrow's race. 150 plays 147. So this is a good race in which, of course, Meerhouse and Owen Bastard can play catch-up, and they are doing just that. And, of course, we're not done yet. It might be that the Audi gains places, might be that the Mercedes loses places before the end of that becomes a different situation. There's the battered Alpine, which is the car, I think I'm right in saying, of Paul Cowpay, that's struggling on. Theo Nue drops down now into turn 16 and up towards the timing line.
So the interesting thing about that point situation is that Meerhouse and Bastard can't get any more points than that because they are leading their class.
Yeah.
But Ibanez and Julie could get more, so they could stretch their advantage from the 3 points it is at this stage of the race.
Or, in the second stint, they could drop back, both cars.
Or they could,
so it
could lose.
Could change that way, yeah, you're quite right. So 36 minutes of the race still to run as down through turn 1. There is Luc Ibanez. Now, he's ahead of Dante Rapponge, but they're in different classes, so for points, that doesn't matter.
But he doesn't look happy.
No.
It's not being driven aggressively. He's not able to kind of lean on the car. He seems to be in real kind of preservation and caution mode. And sometimes you can be too cautious, and the championship disappears and sneaks up on you. And I feel as though NM Racing have got to work on getting the cars a bit more like the Colas ASP machines that look like they're on their toes and dancing around.
We've got an Audi in the pit lane, which is Anthony Beltoire's car with a problem. And as we are heading towards the halfway mark, it's been a lively race thus far. It's sort of settled down a little bit now because Vincent Andronico, underlining his earlier pace from qualifying, is now getting away slightly from Alex Fontana, which in a way is a bit of a surprise because we know how good Fontana is.
But Fontana may well be thinking tyres. We talked about it in qualifying. Could well be important to not push too hard and preserve your tyres a little bit. Look at this gaggle of cars a little bit further back. And this is down in the 20s. I think we're trying to search for our AM Cup crew. And at the head of that is our AM leader, the 69. There is Christophe Hamon. But only 2 cars back as he gets absolutely mugged by a car in a different class. This could be a change for AM.
And there's one bailing for the pit lane there as well because the window has just opened. So the first one in at pace is 17, the Chevrolet. So Dante Rapponge is in to give way to Kenny Heremans. The incident between Maurice Weisskirchen and Henrik Still is under investigation. Jamie Day comes in as well. So now things are going to get really jumbled. That abacus that you've got for your points calculation, just park it for a few minutes because right now the order is going to be very jumbled indeed as Andronico leads Fontana, leads Gilbert.
This little battle is at the head of it, Christophe Hamon who leads AM, and then it's the 37 Porsche, which is Safronov aboard, Loboda aboard that car. That's second in AM, with Safronov third in AM in the 88 machine. So this is a big AM battle. There is Benjamin Lariche recovering after something happened coming onto the main straight, almost like he lost power, like it turned itself off. And by the time he got to the end of the straight, it's quite long here at Barcelona, he was able to almost reset the car, and since then it doesn't look like it's had any further maladies.
That's Kenny Harriman's getting away. Moritz Weisskirchen, who got turned around by Henrik Still, is in 35th place, trying to recover little by little by little. And further through the order, we are on lap 13. Pit window, as you see, is open. Number 67, Marc Lopez, serving a penalty of 10 seconds on his pit stop, because, sorry, of 5 seconds on his pit stop, because the car gained an advantage by being off the track early on in the race. And right now, Etienne Shelley is a bit of a cork in the bottle. He's got Theo Noe and Hugo Sassa right up behind him as they come into the chicane then. It might be an idea to get that Supra into the pits and get the driver change done, but no, he still defends, therefore losing time by going slower, by taking the more defensive lines. Through they turn again, over the line. The lead gap is 1.3 seconds, so Andronico is building the lead now. 76 is the magic number for points for our pit stop here at Barcelona. So that is the time in which you get onto the pit lane speed limiter, do your stop and leave. Anything shorter than that will be investigated, and every single round we still have people who manage to break and go under that window. So we'll see if anybody transgresses this time around in this little battle.
I would guarantee you someone will.
Oh, I don't argue with that at all. Etienne Shelley keeping at bay Nue, keeping at bay Sassa. So this is 5th, 6th, 7th. Moritz Weisskirchen is in, very grumpily, no doubt, number 44 Porsche for the mandatory stop. And look, Shelley now has caught Sasha Botterman. So that car, number 67 Audi, there it is, the sort of lime and lemon-coloured Audi. That's a lap down, but has got a quick driver in it now, Botterman. So that's going to run at the same pace as those drivers that want to lap him. Another reason, meet your pit stop now, get out of the traffic.
Yeah, absolutely. And so few have. It's really the second half of the field that have come in. From our leading group of cars, we really haven't seen anybody choose to come into the pits, other than, I suppose you could say, Dante Reponge and Kenny Harriman's. They were the car the highest up, and they've got beautiful clear track. They've just come past me, and they are half a lap away from these guys. As
Nue tries to go around the outside of Etienne Shelley here, then the inside up towards turn 13. This is the move now for 5th place, and he goes through, and there's a bit of drama in the background as debris flies, but on the inside line through, I think, has gone Theo Nue. Yep, he's done it. Mercedes goes ahead of Toyota. And now let's see if anyone bails out of this. Yes, Nue, having done it to prove a point, coming into the pits, and he's going to follow Rui Muirhas down the pit road.
Sassa also in behind him. I think one of the Mercedes was going through the gravel in the back of shot there and may have well have lost part of their rear diffuser. There was a part either that was already in the gravel or came off a car flying in the air. Through the shot goes the 44 car, once upon a time at the head of the field, and will be tomorrow because it's our pole man for tomorrow. But unfortunately it's the sister Allied Racing machine, the 22, that leads at the moment by 1.4 seconds, has not been getting away from Fontana. He's kept that gap just about as it is.
Now there, the driver change for Rui Muirhas to give way to Owen Bastard. This is Vincent Andronico, who leads the race, the Allied Racing Porsche. In fairness to Allied, they are perhaps better because they're more experienced at running GT4 cars than GT3, but they do have a GT3 program, and bit by bit the results are coming. There, the two Mercedes at play, Jim Pla versus Simon Gachet.
Yes,
see
look
the
at
damage
the back
on the back of Gachet's car, can't you? Yeah.
So it was his diffuser, so he's doing a great job of staying with Jim Plough, although Plough is trying to get through some kind of traffic here. Or is it just Shelley in the way?
It's Shelley in the way, isn't it, in the Supra. So Simon Gachet, or Simon Bachet, with the damage on the rear of the car, goes up now through turn 12.
He's done exactly what I did in Alton Park in 2012. Gone off the circuit, the car is bottomed, and it's ripped off the diffuser, and it's nothing to do with him. He just ran a little bit wide.
And it's an expensive thing, is it that?
Yes, it is.
Yes. Right, Jim Pla doesn't want a battle. He wants clear track space and get on with the job. The problem is he's still behind championship rivals Greg Gilbert and Fabien Michel, and we know that Michel is quick and Jean-Luc Beaublic is perhaps not so quick. So this doesn't necessarily help life for Jim Pla. You can see more bits of Mercedes sitting just by the side of the road there on the exit of turn 12, approach to turn 13. and Etienne Shelley's Toyota Supra thinks about the pit lane. Andronico, Fontana, Gilbert, they've all stayed out. And it should be Etienne Shelley now up into 4th place. It is. Jim Pla is 5th. Simon Gachet is in 6th spot. So, of course, Rui Meirhass, having given way to Erwin Bastard, that car, number 14 Audi, drops down the order. What about Ibanez? He stayed out, hasn't he?
So many have.
Yeah. Although into the pit lane has just come Adam Carroll, very nearly being given a whack in the back. Sorry, no, not Adam Carroll, Alain Valente in the other car, nearly being given a whack in the back by number 32 Mercedes of Stéphane Lamberet, that arrives very rapidly.
Look, Pla is spending a lot of time on, oh, this is Simon Gachet on the lights, but Pla also equally, the two of those Mercedes have spent a lot of thumb time pressing the flasher. You can't press it and it flash consistently. You actually have to press the flash. That was a rule that came in a few years ago where teams had set up the flasher to be one button press and lots of flashes. And it was deemed if you made it a single flash per press, they might use it a little less. You know, Spa in the middle of the night. You've just got fireworks basically coming out of every car.
I mean, it's a nice idea that the driver ahead is going to look up at the wrong moment and then make a mistake, and the drivers will try every trick in the book to try and make that happen, but it ain't working yet. There is Gachet on the back of Pla. Shows how evenly matched those cars are. Now, not only are they being held up by Shelley, but Shelley is encountering traffic as well now, so it's a right old traffic jam. Of course, cars rejoining after pit stops, completely out of position. Andronico, the leader, is in, this time to give way to Andreas Mayel.
And so does Fontana to match them. So absolutely no differential in strategy between our two Porsches. Much more aggressive on the pit lane speed limiter was the second Porsche, so Fontana. And Greg Gilbert also in from 3rd position, and the Toyota. And we did see a change. Pla got ahead of Shelley before they came into the pits. And look at the queue of the rest of the field now getting their pit stops done before the window shuts.
Absolutely right. So the Toyota bails out of the line first. This is where it's a good thing to have your pit box perhaps to the pit in end. But then the danger is that you rejoin the traffic on the way out. So there, Vincent Andronico gives way to Andreas Mayel. Now, I know we've mentioned that Vincent Andronico has had his moments this year. So has Andreas Mayel, for example. He's been off the road a few times, so nothing is certain in this. They led at Imola, if you remember, at the start of the season, and that was where we saw Andronico being quicker than Mayel.
And here was the pass, and it was literally into the chicane.
Which is a very, very bold move. You don't often see that.
But we saw that from Jim Pla a couple of times. He might not necessarily be able to walk particularly fast, but he is being very aggressive when it comes to overtaking and trying to provide Jean-Luc Beaubelique the best possible position, because we know that Beaubelique obviously is not as strong as Pla in the Pro-Am category. He is the Am, but at least if he's up high, then he won't fall too far. That's the theory anyway.
Now, the other battle, of course, is going to be this car, Owen Bastard, relative to Enzo Juliet. 25 more minutes are on the clock as through goes the Audi, and it is going to come through now with just ahead Fabien Michel, but remember that car's in a different class, so through goes Owen Bastard.
But look how much these Mercedes have lost in relation to the number 4 Aston Martin coming through and the 24. So actually in the pit stops, the 24's made up good amount of ground. Was started by Ortmann, and Sasa, now has Ortmann aboard.
An incident between 22, Vincent Andronico, and 42, Greg Gilbert, has been noted. Now, that goes back a long time, and it was at here, wasn't it, where there was that little bit of contact, and you at the time said, I wonder if that will get looked at. Well, it's been noted, so it might do. At the end of the next lap, we can give you the corrected order after the pit stops, but Andreas Mayel has taken over number 22, 7:18 from Alex Fontana now to Ivan Jacoma, and that is Jean-Luc Beaubelique at the wheel of 87, having taken over from Jim Pla. So at the end of the lap, we'll start to get an idea of exactly who is where.
A reminder that the top 6 now have their AM drivers in. And the first Silver Cup car is the Rabindra Canning Aston Martin. So expect that car, and then Enzo Julie is up to 9th position now to move up through the field in the second half of this race. interesting that Mercedes has got itself up into second in class.
And a bold effort is being made there by Corentin Souran to try to get past Jean-Luc Bobelic, who goes a bit wide out of turn 10, and because he was on the wrong line there, he's compromised all the way through that snake of 11 and 12 up the hill. He hangs onto the place as there, what's left of the Alpine, tries to have a go on the inside line, but as the cars come to the chicane, it's a bit scrappy for Robert Hauger, goes deep in, and that means now that he's in jeopardy. There are the leaders going by. So Andreas Mayel leads Ivan Jacoma in second place. Down towards turn 1 they go. Their third is now Erwin Bastard. Fourth behind him is Fabien Michel. And then fifth is Mike Ortmann. Sixth is Haub. Seventh is Simon Terman's crumpled Alpine. In 8th place overall is Jean-Luc Bobelic. 9th is Corentin Souran. And 10th, we've got a BMW out of nowhere. That's Will Burns.
Yeah, he's going to be another one making progress, won't he, in this second half of the race. Kenny Herriman's behind him in the orders. So just trying to work out. It has changed quite a lot since we last looked. Enzo Juli is down in 14th again, so we've reset. Timing screens have caught up with all the pit stops and is still in 5th in class, with Will Burns in 4th in class, Terman in 3rd, Ortmann 2nd, and Bastard leading the Silver Cup.
Okay, so Will Burns, reigning champion in British GT's GT4 contest, hustles on, and he's all over the back of the Toyota. And a big drama there. Look, the Mercedes behind. Now that was Eric Debar, wasn't it? Put a wheel on the dirt, and also nearly dropped that car. So he got away with it, but that was a bit touch and go. But Burns on a mission, and the BMW that was absolutely nowhere in the first stint is most definitely back at the races now.
Prediction of the points now, same as it was for Julien Meyerhouse, same as it was for Orman and Sasser as well. So no change at the moment. And there are cars in between each one of our Silver Cup machines, so there's no real battle on track between two cars other than Gus Bowers and Robert Constantini, 18th and 19th, with Constantini in that number 3 Audi Burger King sponsor machine, making his way up through the field after their issues at the start.
So there goes Will Burns once more down to the chicane. Andreas Mayel ahead of Ivan Jacoma, and then in 3rd place Erwin Bastard. Now normally Erwin Bastard is quick, and indeed he is lapping faster than the 2 race leaders. So the Audi catching up. Now this is where we stand at the moment in the Pro-Am situation. Bobelic and Pla would end up with 161 points, the 135 of Gilbert and Fabien Michel.
One would assume that Bobelic will be going backwards further, with Corentin Souran behind him, and that would be for class, Eric Debar and Kenny Herrimans as well, whereas Fabien Michel has 2 silver cars behind him. So the next car from the Pro-Am category would be Haub, and there is a 6-second gap between the 2 of them. Good little battle though, isn't it, with now coming into it Julie and Del Sart.
Now bear in mind that Greg Gilbert and Fabien Michel are on target at the moment to score for 3rd in Pro-Am. Whatever they score tomorrow, there's also the point for the class pole position for race 2 to be awarded as well. So there's that to factor in as well. So there's 25 points for a class win, but there's a point for pole, which they can add to their tally when we get to the race tomorrow.
Here comes the big Camaro down the inside to relegate Bobelic another position. It won't be long before Enzo Juli gets past as well, but that won't be for position. Looks to the outside to try and go all the way around the outside. It won't happen there, but a nice switchback move, and gets that done cleanly. No more points for that. He needs to get past Will Burns before he gets more points in his class, and Burns is scampering up the road.
So the race has got just under 20 minutes still to run. As a big bounce over the curb from Enzo Julier there. Now he's in 13th place overall, and off the road, which suggests we're going to have another interruption, is the sister NM racing car, number 88, then well and truly off the racetrack. That has been put there by Alexander Weintraub, and that is up at turn 12 approach, if I look out of our window, I can't see the car, but I can see the dust settling, I can see the yellow flags waving, and there you can see Corentin Surin under attack now from Kenny Heremans.
That is an unusual place to go off on your own.
It suggests help, doesn't it, to be off the circuit up there. So yellow flags in sector 3, and another interruption might be coming our way. The driver is okay, but the car is off the road, as you can see, as there, up the inside, tries to go Heremans. If there isn't a gap and there's a Camaro behind, the Camaro might well make a gap, but he in turn now has got Enzo Juliet looking for a way past him. There's a full course yellow coming, the full course yellow situation.
Full course yellow in 10 seconds.
Into the pit lane has just come number 11 BMW.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Full course yellow now.
Our third full course yellow of the race, and this I suspect is going to be a longer interruption because they've got to get that car out of the way, and I would think we'll have at least a safety car lap, maybe 2 on the back of it.
Now let's have a look as to what happened. As we thought, battle for position, that a little bit of a kiss through one, oh, and another, and that is the 37 Porsche that took the lead of the AM Championship that has spun the 88 around.
Nerfed him well off, didn't he, there? It was quite a big hit between them. To get a car airborne takes something. So Stanislav Savronov is okay, but very, very annoyed about that. And that would have done a bit of damage, I would have thought, to the Porsche as well. That's Andrei Solokotsev at the wheel of it.
Dropped down to 3rd in class now, so has handed over the 2nd position in class to the little Alpine, the number 28 of de Brabant. That started the tail end of the field. That was Lars, I think, in fact.
And the Marshals trying to assist with the recovery. Fair play to our cameraman, to Richard Draper, who didn't flinch at all, did he?
No.
There, the car out of the way. And
there's a cameraman.
Indeed, yes. Don't worry, Drapes, laundry on its way.
It's got an umbrella, how lovely.
Kept the gravel off it, that's what it's for. So the field turns through under full course yellow conditions, and I suspect we will be going safety car pretty shortly.
They are very good at grabbing and going here. Getting those 4x4s in, towing the cars out for the most part. The most efficient way of doing it without big cranes and having to try and attach them to the roof and things like that.
Although there's another argument that says that if you do drag, you do damage, whereas if you lift...
Safety car, lights on. Safety car procedure, safety car.
There we go.
I think we predicted that one as well. So the pace now quickens, and that car's almost out of the gravel, so it won't be long, one hopes, before we can get things back underway. So we've had 3 full course yellow periods, 2 of which have gone to safety cars, and in the AM category right now, Mikhail Loboda and Andrei Solokotsev would be the provisional leaders, although I suspect that's going to be looked at, that incident. Mauro Ricci 2nd, and then Christophe Amon and Michel Blanchemin in 3rd.
And that's the reason for that is Mauro Ricci's only 6th in class. Not really seeing too much of the 61 car that had Fabien Barthez in for the first stint, and also under pressure from the 18 and the 63. So potential to lose even more points for Ricci, who started the season with his father, Benjamin, but son Benjamin. Son Benjamin leaving on Saturday night in yes, it was Hockenheim.
Yeah.
And therefore the points differential between father and son, meaning that the championship could not be won by Benjamin but could still be won by Mauro, and so Mauro requiring a new teammate.
So this is where we stand at the moment in the Pro-Am contest, and now it is 24 points between them. There's 25 for a win and a point for pole position as well, which will be given to Gilbert and Michel for tomorrow. So it does go to the last race, and it's still advantage Bobolik and Pla. And from Jean-Luc Bobolik's point of view, the fewer racing laps in this second stint, the less opportunity there is for people to get past him.
Yeah. He's got Egdebar directly behind him. Then a couple of silver cars. So he's unlikely to lose too many more positions, I would have said. As I said before, the Gilbert Michel Audi can't get any better than that. Oh no, it can, of course it can. If the two Porsches ahead tripped over each other, then it would. It sits third in class.
So under 14 minutes of yet another lively GT4 European Series race to go. The field now comes down to turn 1. The recovery operation, I think, is pretty much done, isn't it? So maybe we will be good to go at the end of this. We've got a couple of cars being looked at for being short on the pit stop, one of which is Christophe Amon and Michel Blanchemin, and the other is Alain Lagrange and Frédéric de Brabant.
Safety car in
so
this
hang on, that's leaders and second place in AM.
Right.
So that will change things in the AM category a lot, because that will hand the 37 car the lead before they then get a penalty for what happened up at the at turn 12 there.
Yes.
If there is a penalty.
Assuming there is to be one, you're quite right.
So
yes.
then the car that's in 4th position right now may inherit the lead.
Of the AM class.
Of the AM class.
Yeah, Kevin Jimenez at the wheel, the Clio Cup graduate, now French GT racer. So yeah, AM is going to be a steward's room result, I think, isn't it?
Well, I mean, that's exactly what the AMs enjoy. A sit around with a glass or two of red wine and discussing their trials and tribulations of the afternoon.
Possibly so. I think it depends on the company you keep, though, really, as to how jolly a night it is. Number 15, though, is Enzo Juliet. Now, that car is now, although it's only 11th, it's 3rd in class. So it has not done too badly for points out of all of this. The overall position doesn't sound thrilling, but it's a podium in class, and that's all right. That keeps it very definitely ahead for tomorrow. The next...
There we go. Three points is still the gap.
The next target for that car... Sorry, 5th in class, not 3rd, 5th in class. The next target is Will Burns' BMW. So...
Yeah, but as I said earlier, I think Will Burns has been scampering away from Enzo Juliet rather than the gap getting smaller.
The one that might end up being, again, it depends how much racing time we get left, but the one that might get elbowed back a bit is Simon Thiermann's Alpine, because A, it's a bit dog-eared, so it might not be handling all that well. And equally, as the safety car is due in this time when we go back to racing, it isn't really an Alpine circuit. Right, it is Porsche 1, 2, and then Audi 3, and we are back racing, and the leaders, as they come towards us, are together. No traffic amongst them.
Watch out for Will Burns here, because Robert Haub made a mistake through the last turn and dipped a wheel in the gravel, so that blue BMW at the top of our shot looking to make a pass on the Mercedes. Is he close enough? Yes, he does. Down the inside, nice and easy for position, but no extra points for that one. It does, though, put Haub into the clutches of Surat and Kenny Heremans.
So there is number 12, Will Burns. As you say, he's up past Robert Haub now, as again, number 22, Andreas Mayol, is building the lead. But look, now Erwin Bastar is looking to try to get himself up past Ivan Jacoma for that 2nd place. And as they turn their way now up through turn 4, another good battle is Fabien Machel trying to fend off Mike David Ortmann, and behind Ortmann you've got Simon Thiermann. Now Ortmann and Thiermann are in silver, so they are targets first for Will Burns, but also for Enzo Juliet if he can get up there by the end.
What Enzo Juliet will be very happy to see is them fighting and scrapping and potentially chipping over each other. That will be the best news for him.
But equally, Juliet has got to get himself past Corentin Surat, as there, further back through on the inside of Beaubelique goes Gus Bowers, and also Ruben Del Sart goes through as well. So the two Aston Martins making a bit of progress.
Which means Debar has already gone through, so he's lost another position.
There's a place gained, look, by Enzo Juliet. Corentin Surat makes a mistake into turn 10. The Mercedes goes through. Now that's for position, but not for class position, and therefore it doesn't help in terms of points, but it does bring Juliet closer to his opposition. So Beaubelique down the place, Debar is on his tail, and then you've got Robert Consonny, and also going pretty well at the moment, actually, is Tim Whale in the Greystone GT McLaren, as there Robert Consonny tries to get up on the inside into the chicane, can't do it there.
Yeah, so there's the 81 and the 87 both didn't have very good starts off that last safety car, and they both ended up dropping back. Consonny now in the slipstream, and that should be an easy move. He is in the realms here of the AMs, and so should be able to make good progress. Look at Will Burns down the inside of the little Alpine, so that's another place gained for Will Burns, up into 6th position. Simon Thiermann losing a spot, and Ortmann has passed Michel. So that's changed as well.
Okay, but again, that doesn't change things in the class points situation because they're in different classes. But now look, Will Burns is on the attack. He is taking with him the Alpine of Simon Thurman, but he's wriggled his way past that. So that's a change within the silver category. And Juliet trying to get up with them. There's less than 9 minutes to go. So, yeah, although the order is being shuffled around, it's not being shuffled around within the classes.
Although Will Burns now on the podium, would you believe, for his particular class. So considering in qualifying we said, oh, the BMWs don't look very strong. They seem to be in the second half of the field. Over a one-lap pace maybe, but over the full stint of a one-hour race, they're looking after their tyres, and Will's just going faster and faster at the end of this one.
But he knows that car absolutely inside out. That was Enzo Juliet in the background, I think, hooking a wheel onto the dirt. This is for the race lead now, look. Ivan Jacoma coming under pressure from Owen Bastard. So they turn their way up towards turn 9. There's another car being looked at for going through a red light, which is the Vincent Moritz Gysi entry number 6. They're the 3 race leaders. Now, Jacoma is not really dropping away from Mael, and Owen Bastard quicker than the pair now. It's 3 for the lead with just under 8 minutes to go.
This is a really slow lap from Mael as he comes to the line. He's really struggling with the tail end of that car, and I think, as we suggested earlier, Andronico took a lot of effort out of those tyres in the early part of the race. Jacoma makes a mistake through the last corner. That may allow Owen Bastard to get himself up into second position. Look further back, Will Burns is on the inside of Fabien Michel for a position. The Audi can't get down into third position, but Will Burns will move up into 5th overall.
And this is where Bastard tries to go for second place overall, but he's got to be careful because the last thing he needs is to get involved in a battle that puts him off the road and he doesn't score points at all. So really, Bastard can just sit there because as long as he fends off Mike David Ortman and wins the class, that's good. But now look, if the Aston Martin gets past the Audi, that takes points away from the Audi drivers. That's advantage for the Mercedes team to a greater extent. So now Bastard's target isn't so much attack, it's got to be defend, surely.
It was a slow lap for Mael last time, but he's got himself back together again, and he's got a nice little comfortable gap over Jacoma. And Jacoma really is probably looking in his mirrors too much here, trying to work out what is going on with Owen Bastard. He doesn't need to worry. There's not 4 points. It's not for the championship. It'd just be for pride. Oh, he's on the outside. This is exactly
what Bastard does not want to do, because if he gets this wrong, Mike David Ortman's going to be past him. He does put it off with a great move round the outside. So that now buys him some breathing space. Mike Ortman's going to try to have a go at the Porsche coming down towards turn 10. But he can't get up the inside line there, but he might be able to do it coming out of the corner because, yes, the Porsche goes wide. The Aston Martin tries to get the drive off the corner, can't do it. This is where Owen Bastard closes on Andreas Mael, so Mike Ortman now needs a tight line coming out of turn 12. He's up the curb. He still can't quite get past Fontana. And Jacoma in 718, so as they come down towards the chicane once again. Now Mike Ortman is stuck, isn't he, because he's lost ground over the last 3 or 4 corners relative to Bastard. Now, look, again, the inside line beckons, but he doesn't get the drive off the corner.
Jacoma has really been unsettled on this last lap, maybe like Mael had been the lap previously, and it's going to be a very, very slow one from Fontana, from Jacoma, who started the lap in second position and is going to drop to 4th position and maybe 5th, because here comes Will Burns with huge speed down the straight, just accelerates past the Aston Martin, and that puts him up to 2nd in class.
Right, so now he goes for the position, doesn't he now, against Ivan Jacoma, but Owen Bastard getting away. So look, what can Burns do against Jacoma that the Aston Martin and Mike Ortman couldn't? 7th place now to the V8 Racing Chevrolet. Kenny Herriman's at the wheel, and Enzo Juliet is still stuck down in 9th place. He is not making progress. He needs some of these other Silver Cup cars to tangle and go off, really. That's his only chance now. We've also had a spin for Mauro Ricci, so he has fallen further down in AM. This is the AM class is the one nobody wants to win, seemingly, with penalties and Damocletian investigations. So with 5 minutes on the clock, they're in now 4th place overall is Will Burns, and bouncing over the curb. First of all goes Jacoma, then Burns, then Ortman, and somehow Simon Thurman's little Alpine is holding together and he's staying with them.
Yeah, the BMW runs a little bit higher than most cars, so it allows him to take curbs where others may not be able to. That's part of the rules and regulations. Dive down the inside from Enzo Juliet now, trying to get our move on. Down the inside of Fabien Michel. And that is a move done, but it doesn't, well, it's not a move done, and it doesn't really matter either, does it, in terms of points?
It's not done yet, and it isn't done at all. Once he can get the switch back for turn 13, Enzo Juliet again tries to get up the inside of the Audi, can't do it. He's on the lights, flashing the lights all the time to try to unsettle, and now he commits to the inside line, and he does dive through. Good move, assuming he gets the car slowed down. He's off the road. Now, will he be told to give back the place? You could argue that he's just gained an advantage there. Even though he was ahead, he wasn't going to make the corner at that speed, so it might be that Juliet has to give that place back. Let's find out.
But I think also Fabien Michel was being very kind and kind of allowing him to go through, moved out wide, slowed down, and maybe even caught Enzo Juliet off guard. But there we go, the place changes once more. Michel goes back ahead, and that means that Juliet's had to go all the way down that main straight on half throttle to allow it to happen.
So the team have also said just give the place back to make sure. Nothing has come up officially, but the team perhaps reading the runes and say, OK, let's not risk anything here. So the place is given. He can do it all over again, maybe. Now up the road, Bastard still leads Silva from Burns, from Ortman, from Turman. And then from Enzo Juliet, who is trying to get himself up past Fabien Michel once more. And what have we got here? Mercedes Fun and Games.
Debar still sitting behind Bobelik.
Oh, and that's Bobelik being given a hip and shoulder and off the road. So he rejoins, cars scatter, gravel goes all over the road, and Jean-Luc Bobelik there in real strife.
And that's a lot more points lost for doing that. Jim Plar in the garages will be holding his hands in his head, or his head in his hands.
Either or, depends if he's standing upright or not. Jean-Luc Bobelik, then the pace was going away anyway, but that's just compounded the problem, hasn't it, by being turfed off the road. So we have got just about time for possibly 2 more laps at the end of this. It's going to be close, isn't it? A flying lap is, at the moment, a 1:58. So down they come. I think we might be good to start the last lap this time. We will.
Will Bastard go for an overall win here? He's only half a second back from Andreas Meijl.
Don't see why he would.
There's no need to.
No, exactly. All he can do is put himself in strife. Look, he nearly goes off the road there, but he's got Ivan Jacoma between himself and the class opposition, and even if that 3rd place overall changes, he's not going to be able to catch Bastard before the end. So he's just going to sit there and bank the points. That would be the logical thing anyway.
Racing drivers don't tend to be logical in the heat of battle.
If Santalok are playing this right, they'll be on the radio telling him which battle to pick.
Yeah.
That's Mike Ortman, under attack from Simon Turman. And Enzo Juliet has got back ahead of Fabien Michel, but he's too far back now within Silva to do anything about it.
Yeah, definitely no more points for this race, and they don't have a particularly good qualifying position for the second one from Enzo Juliet, I don't remember. So it's going to be a real uphill struggle to get themselves that championship tomorrow lunchtime in the heat of the day, probably the hottest they will have experienced this weekend.
Battle on for 10th and 11th. And Owen Bastard is going to have a go for all of this. It might bite him. Let's find out. Andreas Meijl then comes up towards turn 9. He is under huge pressure, and so also is Ivan Jacoma. In both cases here, you've got an AM being attacked by a Silva, because these are the Pro-Am cars defending from Silvers. And Owen Bastard, if he is going to make the move, has got to make it a clean one. If it's a clumsy tangle, then he's going to be in real strife with the team going into the final race. And Meijl goes wide.
Meijl was too deep into the corner. He was really put off by what the Audi was doing behind him. He's just about rescued it because of the layout of the circuit. Look now for the cutback on the exit of this corner from the Audi. Not quite possible.
But what about the chicane? That's going to be a real lunge if it happens for Owen Bastard. So Andreas Meijl might have just about been able to do this for the first win. He's a bit ragged into the chicane. The exit speed slightly compromised. Here comes the change for 3rd place, though. Burns dives up the inside of Jacoma. He goes through. Will Burns for 3rd overall, but finally it's an outright win, provisionally, for Vincent Andronico and Andreas Meijl from Owen Bastard and Rui Meerhaus. And then 3rd is Will Burns and Beke Bessler. Brilliant drive by Will Burns, that, because that car we barely talked about in the first stint. And Will Burns, it was a good pit stop, but a great second stint for the former British Touring Car Championship racer, Ginetta champion. And he comes through for 3rd overall, 4th Fontana and Jacoma, 5th Ortman and Sasa, 6th number 110 Alpine, Simon Turman, in the car started by Paul Caupe, and where in the end was Enzo Juliet, 8th with Luke Ibaniev.
Starting 15th, good progress from that car, but ultimately not really as much as they want to leave Saturday with just a 3-point advantage. It's going to be very difficult to go to sleep for them tonight, I imagine.
I mean, the biggest question is going to be, where do we find the pace from in the Mercedes? But Vincent Andronico and Andreas Meijel, assuming that win stays, because they're being looked at for the incident with Greg Gilbert from earlier on, but they do deserve a win because they've tried so hard, and the speed of Andronico has been undeniable all season.
The guys have worked hard to get that car fixed as well. There's no marks from the earlier incident during qualifying. To start the day in the gravel trap, to cause a red flag, and to find yourself on the top step of the podium by the end of the day is quite remarkable, considering they had qualifying, then they had to turn around the cars for this race. And Andronico really did push hard. You could see the way that he was driving was aggressive. And let's not forget, he passed on the road and drove away from Alex Fontana in the same car.
Number 15 is under investigation, cut turn 14 and gained advantage. Well, it gave the place back, so I'm not quite sure what investigation is needed there.
It's possible it happened again without us seeing.
True. But the incident that we saw was given back straight away. I mean, we talked about it at the time. You identified at the end of the pit straight that he'd had to go down the pit straight on virtually half throttle. So we lost about half a dozen cars for incidents, 3 non-starters, which was a shame, but another really enthralling race right to the end.
One of the ones that we lost that we didn't really cover was the 19 Aston Martin, which was started by Tom Canning and was right up the head of the field, but retired 5 laps ago by Rabindra. I didn't see whether that came into the pits or stopped out on circuit.
Somewhere on the circuit, by the look of it.
Does look like it, yeah. So that was a real shame for them. And we didn't see the start from the Toyota 66. And Mauro-Ricci ended up being last.
Well, provisionally, these are the results. A win for Andreas Meijel and Vincent Andronico from Rui Meerhaus and Owen Bastard. And then Berke Bessler and Will Burns take 3rd place. Alex Fontana and Ivan Jacoma 4th, ahead of Hugo Sasser and Mike David Ortman. The top 6 completed by Paul Kaupe and Simon Turnham. The silver win to Erwin Bastard and Rui Meerhaus. The Pro-Am win to Andreas Meijel and Vincent Andronico, and the winning AM in the end, well, on the road at least, Christophe Amon and Michael Blanchemin, but that's another one with a penalty looming. So again, it's all a bit provisional. So one more race to go in the championship. That is tomorrow, early afternoon, and that's going to decide the champions, but it's going to go down to the wire in all 3 classes. So again, it's going to be another of those races where there's the track and there's the calculator to look at. And the drivers in a few moments will make their way to the podium, and a really, really good win for the Pro-Am Porsche of Vincent Andronico and Andreas Meijel. 2nd in Pro-Am, Ivan Jacoma and Alex Fontana, and 3rd in Pro-Am, Kenny Heremans and Dante Raponge. Winners being given their regulation Pirelli hats. This is how we look in Pro-Am then. So it's 153. Plays 132, 21 points between them. So Bobelik dropping back gave the advantage for Gilbert and Michel to fight on into the last round of the championship within the Pro-Am competition going into tomorrow's race. And AM is all very up in the air with quite a lot of people being looked at, but it was Michael Blanchemin and Christophe Amon that won on the road from Kevin Jimenez and Florent Grisot in 2nd place, and then 3rd, soloist Greg Faisal. So it is a win at last for Vincent Andronico and Andreas Meijel. They can perhaps start celebrating. They're with Gemma.
Boys, congratulations. Come and join us, Andreas. That was wonderful, and the pressure right on you until the very end.
It was nice, to be honest. I fought till the end. It was a very long and hard session or season, let's say. We give always our best. We had a lot of times bad luck, but now, fortunately, it's paid.
Absolutely. And Vincent, you know, from that start there, you really pulled up impressively through the field.
Yeah, no, we lost the pole in qualifying, so I had just one option to go forward. We had the performance in qualifying, we had the speed, so I was just giving my best, pulling a gap, and then went for the move and just trying to moderate the speed, and then gave over to Andy.
Congratulations, both of you. Great drive.
Thank you very much.
Well, great stuff. 2 very, very happy drivers, and although they are being looked at, it is to be hoped that there's nothing lurking in the system for that earlier incident that would take that win away. So while driving standards are always looked at, it was a gentle rub, or relatively small rub between them. Other drivers being congratulated in their respective classes. But one or two frustrated drivers as well. Will Burns, though, great job in the BMW. And that car for third place overall right at the very end.
I feel as though that's the first time we'll see that BMW on the podium this year.
I think you're right. It's not been a regular for the podium. It's been up in the top 6, but Will Burns drove really, really impressively in that. He's come a long way since his formative years in the Castle Combe Saloon Car Championship, through the ranks of Ginetta Racing to win championships, had a season with Team Hard in the British Touring Car Championship, and very much now a GT4 and BMW, GT4 in particular, expert. And that's just been borne out by what we've seen over the last few miles of the race. So the drivers being encouraged to the podium. What about the other silver contenders? Romeo Haas and Owen Bastal are with Gemma.
It's a pretty good atmosphere down here. It feels like we've already ended the championship, but this fight is still on. Owen, you drove a really big battle there. You were pushing hard.
Yeah, I wasn't really looking for the first place overall. I mean, we really need those points, so I was playing a bit safe. Now we are 3 points back behind Ibanez and Juliet, so yeah, really happy about this race. We worked really hard on the degradation, and we managed to find a good setup, I think, for the race. So yeah, tomorrow will be maybe a little bit harder, because we start 15, I think. So yeah, I mean, we have nothing to lose now. We secured second place, I think, of the championship, so all in for tomorrow.
Just got a big push for the final drive tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, just to go back on what everyone said with the setup, huge thanks to the team. My engineer Jeff, the mechanics, they did an amazing job with this car. We had pace, I think, for most throughout the whole session. Yeah, and we did everything we could today, maximized all the points. Just 3 points behind, so we're definitely, it all comes down to tomorrow.
Absolutely, a great way to end the championship. Congratulations, great work today.
Thank you.
And that car looking as though it's got better pace than the championship rival Mercedes entry going into that last race tomorrow. So although they're behind, it's kind of advantage Audi in terms of pace, Ben.
And that's such a surprise, isn't it? Because you come here and you would imagine with a team that's based 5 minutes down the road, they would be the ones with the advantage. Like we've seen when we go to Paul Ricard, the Alpines come on strong, even though the circuit might not suit an Alpine. The teams know it well from the French Championship, and you know, even Spa, where the Santalot guys were racing and winning 1 week before we were there for the 24 hours, same deal. But it just hasn't worked out for NM here this weekend, and maybe you could say generally for the Mercedes, because the best of the Mercedes was actually them in the end in 8th spot. But you know, Jim Pla didn't qualify well in his Mercedes either.
I mean, there's also, in a sense, a surprise, because you look at the nature of this circuit and you think, well, it's going to be a Mercedes because it's got long, fast straights. So clearly it's going to be a car with lots of grunt that's going to come out on top. Well, we have the drivers then being called forward. The classes there in third place, you've got Will Burns and Berke Bessler. For second place, Ivan Jacoma and Alex Fontana. And for the race win, Andreas Mayel and Vincent Andronico. Great effort by the Porsche drivers. It's been a long time coming. They're the overall podium then. And the top step goes the way of Andreas Mayel and Vincent Andronico. Right, Pro-Am podium, forgive me. So Dante Raponge, Kenny Heremans that were on the third step. The two Porsche teams are correctly there. And so Vincent Andronico, new to car racing this year, set to receive his trophy in a moment. But first of all, Kenny Heremans and Dante Raponge, who seem to have rather mixed emotions about their third place in class. There's not a huge amount of euphoria coming from both drivers.
I wonder whether they felt they could have done more.
Possibly so. There to Alex Fontana and Ivan Jacoma. The trophies awarded from Peter Corrin of Pirelli. And then to Allied Racing, the winning teams trophy presented as well now.
WS Motorsport on plenty of podiums in Hockenheim with their Porsche. Allied Racing now represented. Great to see also that Andreas Miles brought his helmet onto the podium. Very MotoGP-esque.
So the photographs all taken, and champagne is ready. Vincent Andronico, who's done lots and lots of Porsche miles this year, mainly GT4, but some GT3 as well, and Andreas Mayel starts to celebrate, because on occasions he's perhaps not been as quick as Vincent. Remember in Imola, even though he was the more experienced, and actually was brought in at the 11th hour. Konstantin Dressler was the driver initially penciled in to drive that car with Vincent Andronico. He couldn't do Imola. Andreas Mayel drove instead, and they stayed together for the rest of the season. So let's look at some points. Jean-Luc Bobolik and Jim Platt then 21 ahead, which in real terms is 20, because there's a point for pole for race 2 to be factored in as well, are ahead of Greg Gilbert and Fabien Michel, with Alex Fontana and Ivan Jacoma next, ahead of Kenny Heremans, and then Dante Raponge. Andreas Mayel and Vincent Andronico now sort of kick-started up to 5th, but they might be able to gain a place tomorrow, but it's going to be hard work. But a good effort by Greg Gilbert and Fabien Michel to take that fight to the last round of the championship.
And I do feel as though they are with an advantage going into tomorrow with the qualifying of the 87 car. Jim Pla will be in the second part of the race, and that always is a bit of an advantage when you've got the safety cars that run through the race, nullifying what's happened at the start. We rarely these days get through a GT4 race without some kind of interruption, full course yellow or safety car, which does tend to nullify the effect of the first drive.
Well, Mike David Ortmann and Hugo Sasser have just been joined on the silver podium by Beke Besler and Will Burns, and then the charismatic combination of Rui Miojas and Owen Bastard, with jewellery and inimitable hairstyles apparent. They're on the top step of the podium. They win silver. They are in the mix for the championship, which will be decided tomorrow. The Silver Cup winners are Owen Bastard and Rui Miojas. For Saint-Eloi, the French national anthem is played. Again, trophies to be presented. Mike Ortmann and Hugo Sasser at the far end of the podium. Nearest to us, Will Burns and Beke Besler. If we have an unofficial driver of the race, can we award it to Will Burns for his the second stint of the race? Because that was some charge.
Absolutely. Got it all to do tomorrow with the BMW's one-lap pace. Not particularly strong, but over the course of a race, it does seem as though we heard a little bit about the preservation that was needed in today's race. It'll only be worse tomorrow in the heat of the day. And the BMW, obviously, whilst it couldn't extract the best performance out of its tyre on a one-lap encounter across the hour, Burns had the grip and was just able to almost drive around the outside of people sometimes.
It was mightily impressive, wasn't it? So drivers then with trophies, and very shortly the champagne will be sprayed, and then we've got the AM podium. Now what we're looking at here in terms of results may not necessarily be what the final result sheet says, because perhaps inevitably there will be one or two discussions after the race, and that could affect things as well. But in the Silver Cup, Enzo Juliet and Luki Baniev go into tomorrow's race 3 points ahead of Rui Miojas and Owen Bastard. Then Mike Ortmann and Hugo Sasser can't catch either. They're third from Konstantin Lachenauer and Gus Bowers, and Beke Besler and Will Burns now are just 8 points off the Aston Martin drivers, so that's going to be up for grabs tomorrow as well. So tomorrow is certainly going to be a lively race, that's for sure, as now the podium, the Barcelona-shaped podium, circuit-shaped podium, is made ready for the AM drivers, where for third place it should be Greg Faisal, who's driven on his own. For second place, the combination of Kevin Jimenez and Florent Grisot. And then for the category win, Michel Blanchemin and Christophe Amon will step forward.
But this is still provisional, right?
Very.
Because we definitely... What's weird about it is we know that the pit stop time is under for those two under investigation because we can see it on our timing screens. It was a 14.9 for Amon Blanchiment, and it was a 12.9 for the 28 machine. So it should be a slam dunk for penalties.
Yeah, I mean, there is the Joker pit stop that gives you a second's tolerance that you can use once across the two races. But
neither of those are that.
No, indeed. So, yeah. But I think...
It's an odd podium to have.
It needs to go through the stewards before the result can be amended. But you're right. It's a provisional result in AM, that's for sure.
But they're going to take the trophies away.
Back.
Now, so the 28 machine has been given a penalty then, because they are no longer on the podium unless they lost that on the last lap.
Okay. So I think there are some penalties that are time penalties that can be put in straight away, but others that are still being investigated will take a bit longer, won't they?
But that was an obvious one because it was a 12.9. Blanchemin and Amon did a 14.9. And remember, the threshold is 15 basically because the time is supposed to be 16. So they are 0.1 below the threshold. Maybe they have argued that they can use their Joker on that one.
Well, as it stands, Michel Blanchemin and Christophe Amon are victorious. The second-placed crew, Florent Grisot and Kevin Jimenez, in the Aston Martin run by the GPA racing team, which is a squad run by David Pouget, hugely successful in Clio one-make events, but spreading its wings into GT racing. And there's some hat throwing going on from Michael Blanchemin. The AM podium always has a slightly different feel, doesn't it? The AM has enjoyed themselves in a different way. And going into tomorrow's race, provisionally, Mikhail Loboda and Andrei Solokotsev lead provisionally from Mauro Ricci. Third provisionally are Christophe Amon and Michael Blanchemin, with Benjamin Ricci now tied on points, but he isn't racing this weekend, so he won't score anymore. Julien Lambert, Wilfried Casabon didn't start, so they've not scored. Alexander Weintraub and Stanislav Sofronov were in the gravel. They didn't score. Paolo Maloney, Max Tresoldi are next. Provisionally, because those are provisional. Did I mention that?
They are, absolutely.
So Andreas Mael and Vincent Andronico take a win in another spectacular GT4 European Series race, and there's more to come tomorrow, just to try and remind ourselves of exactly what happened in a lively hour of racing. It all began with a good start made by Greg Gilbert from the outside of the front row, and as the cars stormed their way down towards turn one, Alex Fontana on the inside line being able to hold sway up into second place, the Toyota Supra of Etienne Shelley. Early dramas, though, had battles between Mercedes, and Jim Pla battled his way up past Théo Nouet, with Simon Gachet trying to do the same thing around the outside line. Then we had contacts as Hendrik Still got into the side of Moritz Weisskaken and turned him around, and that would ultimately spell the end for the Hendrik Still Porsche. Number 44 battled on in the end to 18th place, but it was a result that went begging. The pit window went through, driver changes cycled through, and in the second stint, Will Burns got hold of BMW number 12 and absolutely hurled it around the AM rival Mercedes into the gravel. Another restart, another battle, and this was for the race's second place. Round the outside went Erwin Bastard, a brave move to give himself breathing space over the Silver Cup opposition. In Pro-Am, Jean-Luc Boberly got nerfed off the road and into the gravel bed. He got back out, gravel all over the circuit, and then the fight for the race lead raged on. Andreas Mael trying to keep Erwin Bastard at bay. That he did for the first win of the season for the Allied Racing Porsche team. But Will Burns, coming out of the chicane for the last time, managed to dive up the inside of Ivan Jacoma for third place. Andreas Meyer and Vincent Andronico win. There's more from GT4 tomorrow. For now, from Ben Constantiouris and David Anderson, goodbye.